All right, thank you so much, Felicia. And also, you have a great voice for this. I just wanted to say all your announcements. I was like, oh my gosh, this is professional. Um, all right, so I think, do I have to say spotlight for everyone onto myself? Oh, okay. I hope that worked. Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I will be teaching just the features of the portrait. So let me switch over to my sketchbook here. Boop, boop. Maybe. Oh, that's not what I wanted. That's my speaker, not my camera. Sorry, I swear I did this earlier. There we are. All right, so you may have seen this as the thumbnail for the class, at least I hope you did. This is just a general idea of what we will be doing today. I hope what you come away with today is that if you can draw a basic shape, you can just keep breaking it down to smaller and smaller basic shapes until we land on an actual feature of the face. Now, I have another class coming up next Friday, so if you have any questions as to how this all blends together, how to make a face out of the features, that is exactly what class is going to be for. So if your questions tend to stray that way, be sure to join me next week for that as we tie it all together. So without further ado, I will get started here. Here, I'll just pin this up here and hopefully it won't fall mid-class. But if you hear some paper falling, that is exactly what that is. So what we'll get started here with today is just starting with the eye. And that will probably take a lot of our time today because not only is the eye probably the most complex thing that we're going to be drawing, but it covers a lot of the same principles that we'll be covering for each of the subsequent things, the nose, the mouth. If we're feeling really ambitious, we can do an ear. Ears are very complicated in and of itself, but that's what we have hair for. We just cover the no, I'm kidding. But let's get started. So I hope you can follow along with me today. And if not, this will be recorded. So if you end up pulling up a reference for yourself or you just want to refresh on any of these concepts I go over, feel free to let me know or watch it again. So just like in that thumbnail image, and I hope you can see this okay. I'm checking my camera. Doesn't look too washed out. However, you can tell it may be hard to see because I'm drawing very lightly. And actually we have a lot of empty space. So maybe we will leave this out over here so you can follow along. And basically what the shape is, it's going to be exactly like this. This shape is representative of the orbital of the eye. And when I say that, I mean, if you look at a skull, the whole space that encompasses where the eye is going to be. And there's a lot that fits into that space between muscle mass and tissue. So, you know, obviously this isn't just the eyeball in here. There's so many other things that are working their way around. One of my favorite things about being a portrait artist, being a figurative artist, is anatomy. I love figuring out how things work together, and it really helps to inform what exactly you are drawing. So you kind of have an underlying knowledge of that. Now, you don't have to come into this today being a medical expert, but you know, if you take anything away from this today, I hope it helps. And also you'll notice I'm just creating as flat as I can of a shade over this sort of slanted octagon here. This is so that we can work into it with our BM2 eraser, just like we did here. And you'll also notice when you look at a skull, it's kind of rounded. We're working all in angles right now because first and foremost, I do feel like when you're working in angles, it is easier to go back and change things, be more flexible about where you're placing things. I feel like if you start doing rounded edges on things, it feels more permanent somehow, and I can't explain it, but I think it just keeps the shapes very simplistic. and easy to place and comprehend. Sorry, I'm already losing my voice, but it seems to be coming back. So either you can blend this out by scumbling. I'm using a medium, by the way, right now, just because I don't need it to be too light at the moment. I don't need it to be too dark. And scumbling is just using your pencil on the side and making small circles. It kind of keeps all of the values flat. And I just used my finger to smudge it out. I won't be going too deeply into values and gradations and such, other than how it relates to the pencil I'm using. And that is only because we only have so much time today, and we're talking about features and not necessarily the basics of using a pencil, but of course they work their way in there because it is what we're using, and it's important to know your materials and what works for you. So this is the 557 2B medium. I hope that's visible. And let me see, the other ways you can blend, aside from using your finger and becoming a mess like myself, is using a Tortillion. This I like to use towards the end because it kind of pushes the pigment into the paper. You can already see how it's, I'll actually practice up here. It's very precise and it pushes the material into the paper. That's why I like to use it for the final techniques. And you can see I taped two together here because I want to use one for my white graphite, or sorry, one for my white charcoal, one for my darker charcoal. Also, it was on the class list, but just to make note of it, I am using toned paper today. That is so that, as you can tell, the white shows up. It's one of my favorite parts of this technique, is using the white charcoal. You can use a dry brush. It's not super important what you use. I know camel hair is pretty soft. I like my good old clearance bin, just whatever works, brushes, as long as it's dry, right? And what this will do, as you can tell in comparison to the blending stump, is it brushes it out further. It, makes it lighter. I'll usually use this as a second step, so I'm kind of working my way backwards here. Or just a paper towel. You can see this one is pretty loved. I just keep it here with all my charcoal supplies. It's a Viva paper towel, so it's a bit more like a shop cloth. You can really use anything. The cheaper, the better if you want more texture. It just depends on what you're using. So what I'll usually start with in order to blend these out is a piece of paper towel, because what I want to do is to tone the paper even further, to use my BM2 eraser to draw back out. So I'll start with this. Usually next step of blending is with my dry brush. Final step is with the blending stump. So now, oh boy, hang on. Technical difficulties here. Okay, there we go. Thought I already pulled out my BM2 eraser, and I know I have like 3 of them within arm's reach. Oh yeah, there's another one over there. Just didn't have it in the pile.
Julia, quick question. People are asking about paper, and then will Q-tips work for the blending?
Q-tips will work. I have a weird texture thing where if I even like picture Q-tips on paper, it's just it will work. It would be closer to a blending stump than anything else. I just personally prefer the preciseness of a blending stump as opposed to like Q-tips. They're not reusable. You're gonna throw them out. I just feel like it's more sustainable to use a blending stump. And as far as paper, this is just smooth tan sketchbook paper. It just go to the store, feel the paper. If it's a good grade of tan for you, I like a medium tone, nothing too dark, nothing too light. Again, just so this shows up, and I like it smooth. So really whatever works for you there. I've even used butcher paper in the past. That's not gonna, hold up, but it's smooth and it's a good medium tone. So as far as that goes, you can do whatever. As far as paper brands, I really like Legion, I like Stonehenge. But yeah, I'm not as particular about that. I hope that helps. So here, what I'm starting to do is I'm drawing basically a little rectangle with my BM2 eraser. So this is our Factis eraser inside of pen style dispenser. They have refills for these, so, don't be too, or you can be generous with using them. They last me a good long while though, and if you want to retract it, you hold it in, push it in. You'd be surprised how much I get that question. But here we go. So this is why I like to tone it and make it an even coat here. And when I'm looking at an eye, if you squint down and you look for just the lighter areas, if you have a reference in front of you, but you can follow along with what I've done here, you just want to look for the lighter areas. So this is a line, this would be a triangle, the bottom part of the lid would be another line. So what I'm doing here more than anything else is looking for simplistic shapes. I'm not going, this is the iris, this is the eyelid just yet. I'm just looking for simple shapes. And what that will do is, again, divorce you from thinking you need to make it look a certain way, take the pressure off of you, and allow you to put things in a more accurate position, especially when we get to the faces next week. That will be your best friend, is practicing observation and simplifying shapes. So now we're going to cut into our overall shape a little bit just to bring us in a little closer to what will eventually be the corner of the eye. But again, I'm just observing where this should inevitably be. And it's better to overshoot with your shapes rather than under. Not that you can't go back and just add more material. You'll see me go back and forth about a dozen times here before I land on the correct shape, probably, especially next week. But that's why I love this technique so much, is because it is so forgiving. You can go back and forth. It doesn't have to be perfect on the first shot. So that's kind of the joy of it for me. So again, I really don't have any curved lines here at all. Everything is straight lines. And you can break it down into even fun shapes that you can conceive, right? Like this kind of looks like a ladle, like whatever helps you to break it down. And again, what kind of helps too is taking off your glasses. If you use glasses to see, just to blur things out, to simplify it. You can bring it into a filter on Photoshop and posterize it. Whatever tools help you to learn to observe, because eventually you'll be able to do it on your own just fine, but whatever helps you in the meantime. So what I'll do now is I'll go back to my medium pencil here, and I will kind of outline the dark shapes that I've left behind after the eraser. And this is definitely, it makes it look like I have a more academic approach, which I guess in a way I do. Since again, I'm cognizant of the anatomy behind what I'm drawing here. This is something you'll see a lot in sculpture studies coming from the ateliers and academies. Sorry, I'm just readjusting here a little bit so I can see what I'm working on. And then what I'll do is I will hatch and just darken this whole shape a little bit more.
Someone's asking if this technique has a name.
I just kind of came up with it. Not totally, like, this is a culmination of about 14 years of studying with so many people. I can't claim anything as my own, but the easiest way that I put it is alla prima, which is literally means to do in one pass. So a lot of people use that term in painting because, you're not letting the paint dry in the interim or anything like that, but that's just how I phrase it. So take it for what you will. I don't know if that's something that's like super Googleable. But yeah, I just hope this helps. Because once you get good at this, again, it's more good at observation than anything else. You can do this in one pass. You can just sit down and sketch somebody. But what's important here is to practice your observation skills and to become efficient with observation and with your materials. You have to know how your materials will work with you and I think that's been one of the biggest learning curves of my career, is just going, okay, actually, let's pare down what materials work for this technique. And what I found to be some of the most useful things is the BM2 eraser and just, charcoal. But genuinely, the BM2 eraser is like a huge part of this, because what it does is it makes erasing part of the progress of the art, rather than mentally saying, oh, I'm erasing, so I'm going backwards, or I didn't do good enough. It's even a mental thing where, you're erasing because you're progressing, not because you're going backwards. I think that's pretty important. Our art is tricky enough. We don't need to make it harder on ourselves than it needs to be, or mentally beat ourselves up about taking steps backward, because that's all this is backwards and forwards until we find exactly the right place we need to be. So as you can see, now I'm starting to add some curved lines. I'm squinting, I'm trying to connect values. And that will become more and more important as we go. I'm using a lighter touch with my BM2 to kind of hatch into this area right below the eyebrow, where just mentally, again, from enough practice and observation, I know that there's some light hitting the eyelid and then bouncing back up into the orbital underneath the eyebrow. And again, stuff like that just takes practice. If you've ever done the sphere drawing, which nearly everyone going into art school or any art at all has done this, so I apologize if this is redundant, but really the lessons from it never get old. So you have your sphere, and this is very flat. It's just a circle, but the minute you turn on a light, right? So the light for this will be hitting like that. You're going to have your core shadow. And again, I'm only so far using blending tools on the medium pencil. We will be moving further into all of the various materials we have here soon. But let's say we have the core shadow there. I'm going to be more precise about this and use my blending stump. And just to assist in naming all these various parts that I'm going to be talking about and the rest of the features, so I figured it'd be good to have this on the page. So this is our direct cast shadow right underneath the sphere. So this will be the darkest shadow. And everything in life is just the sphere over and over and over. That's what I'm talking about when we're talking about this. So we have our highlight. We have the light face of the sphere, so everything else the light is touching. We have our core shadow, which is this area where it's going to be darkest. And because the light is coming around, bouncing here, I'm going to use the white to demonstrate this. So this is our highest highlight. And the light is coming around, bouncing off of the ground here and coming back. We are going to have a reflected light back here on the back end. And that reflected light is never going to be as light as the light face, because it's taken so many more steps to hit the actual object. But when I'm talking about this light underneath the eyebrow, light is bouncing off of this, hitting here. It's just something that I feel is important to talk about, especially as we get into things like the nose and the lips. There'll be quite a few instances of reflected light, or at least the potential of it. So I think that's why that's important to cover. All right, so now we're starting to see that this is an eye. So I'll take my medium pencil and I'll start to actually draw in the dark of the eyebrows and the upper lid. I also want to mention, do not feel bad or feel like you have to keep up with the pace I'm going at. We have an hour here. Feel free to watch this back, pause it, take your time. This should take you as long as it needs to in order to get the positioning right on all of these parts of the features. And then the other thing I'll say is the eye is just the sphere again. And what would happen if we drape something over the sphere? It would have a small shadow on it. So the eyeball is also going to have that from the eyelid. Now, of course, there's other circumstances, like what if somebody was telling spooky stories around a campfire and shined a, flashlight up? Well, then the bottom lid would be doing that. But, outside of crazy circumstances like that, this will normally be what you are looking for when drawing. And again, depending on the lighting on your model, it might be stronger, less strong. And I'll also say too that the white of the eye, just because it's called that, does not mean it's white. So you never want to make it that bright. Again, that sphere is being coated not only by the eyelid, but the orbital coming out. Your eyebrow is, probably further than your eye. So it's got many layers of shadow on top of it. Also, what you want to keep in mind, again, with positioning, making sure you have everything right, is unless somebody looks very, very shocked or scared, most of this pupil is going to be covered by the eyelid. And again, this is just, you can, as you're having a conversation with somebody even, you can be looking at the person you're talking to and just observing these things. I'm that crazy person who will be talking to somebody and just be like, man, the red in your ears right now is crazy, just because the light is hitting them right. And usually those around me kind of have gotten used to that behavior, but it's observing. That's how you get better at portrait art. And so I'm taking the brush here and I'm just softening it all again. I know that can be sometimes scary, but we really want a soft atmospheric look to our portraits. So we'll go back in again with our BM2 eraser in all the areas that we took out before. And again, I'm talking in this stage, right? So I want to keep those areas light. And trust me, we'll get to the highlight on the eye soon. But that's always got to be the icing on the cake, right? We can't have dessert before dinner. We got to put in the work. And the thing is too, the eye, I'm going to go back to the sphere. The eye is a lot like a marble. Just at least in terms of talking about how light is reflected through it. So when you see the color of somebody's eye, this is like how the shading is going to work on pretty much everything else. You're going to have a lighter area and a darker area. But if you look at a clear marble, what's fascinating is the darkest area is actually right up near where the highlight is. And again, if you're having a conversation with anyone, look at their eyes. You can see this taking place right in front of you, where the darkest area is up in there. And then the area where you can actually see the color of their eye is diagonal from it. So again, the light is passing through from here and hitting boop, boop, boop down here. So it's always diagonally across from where the iris is. And this is just another trick that's really going to help make your eyes look that much more realistic. So the other thing I will mention as far as eyes go, and you'll see me do this in a moment here, but always make sure these lines are soft. Again, if you look at anyone, that line, it may be hard in comparison to, skin and everything else around it. But what the eye is a sphere covered in water. And anything underwater, as you know, would look blurry. So again, it's just to show the actual texture of the thing. So let's head in here and actually start. And I might, in my personal drawings, take longer to finesse a likeness or whatever at this stage, which is a whole other, lecture in of itself, is how to get a likeness. But that's after, do not worry about that until you've mastered like how to use your materials and put things in the proper place and feel confident with faces. You don't have to immediately, you know, make something look like your favorite celebrity. It's not going to happen. Work on planes of the face, work on drawing from you know, other artists you like. Like look at you know, the old masters, like copy from them. You'll learn so much. And, you know, again, less pressure to make it look like somebody you know, because, you know, nobody knows the Mona Lisa. No one knows her. We don't have to make it look like anyone. So anyways, that's my little rant there. So, I'm hatching with the white pencil. The white pencil is a 558. It is a charcoal white, so it is still charcoal. And I'm hatching with it, and you want to soft touch with it at first. I know I just kind of rushed ahead with these as I was chatting about likenesses and stuff, but you can scumble with it, you can hatch with it. What I like to do is directional hatching. So again, going back to the sphere, I would want to follow the lines of how it is moving in space, right? So I hope that makes sense. So when I'm doing that, what that's actually doing is allowing for a little bit of information to come through about the direction that the skin is moving in as well. And that even kind of stays post blending out with a tortillion. And I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but trust me, it really comes through in the final product if you do follow it up like that. And that's a little bit more advanced, so you know, don't feel like you have to do that. And I know plenty of artists who may only use the white charcoal for just the final highlights or just some smaller areas. It's really up to your own eye, like whatever you want to do, and whatever you see in the world and what you want to represent. And you know, because this one I went way further with the white. I really let it blend into the darks. And part of this technique too is you can tell on this model where I added the white on top of the dark, it's actually a little bit cooler tinted than when I just went over the white onto just the tone paper, not blending it into the dark charcoal. So again, that's a little bit of nuance that you can play with later down the line. We're just focusing on features right now. But that's a bit of nuance that I really enjoy to play around with just for the final touches on my artwork. And again, that's up to you guys to play around with on your own, play around with the materials, see what works for you, see what you like the most. What I'll do here is kind of overlap that line and finally add that little highlight. And the highlight is small. It's a specular highlight. If you look at water, usually the white tiny highlights are very small, and it's the same on the eyes. And there's usually a tiny highlight as well in that corner of the eye, because that's also wet. And depending on, again, your model, there may be a couple little specular highlights down at the bottom just to show more wetness. But yeah, that is going to be an eye. And again, there are other things that you can play around with too, depending on the angle of it. This is more of a 3/4 view of an eye, which I think is fairly useful if you look at a, actually, if you look at the copy of the David, Michelangelo's David, they usually, in academic stores, they have like just a copy of the ear or the eye or the hand of David. Those are amazing to draw from, y'all. And if you have one of those copies yourself, you can angle it in different ways and learn, you know, or just look at your friend, have your friend model for you, take photos of their eye at different angle and just practice. But this is going to be a pretty common angle, and you can take these lessons here today and apply them to any position on the face. So without further ado, we're a little bit over halfway. So what I want to do is definitely get to the nose a while. And this will also kind of be a 3/4 angle, just because it's easier to see shadow on it at a 3/4 angle, but I will go over a little bit of a front on as well. So again, I'm going back to exactly what we did here, just very simple shapes. And what the bottom of the nose is always going to be is a trapezoid. And the trapezoid may be a little bit more squished or a little bit elongated, depending on, are you looking up at the nose? Is it pointed upwards? Like, is the head tilted back? Or is the head pointing downwards? You may not even see the trapezoid, but the trapezoid is where the nostrils will be. So I'm going to put it kind of at a middle. You can kind of see the nostrils, but you can't see up them like here. So something you will do here is start to find that side plane of the nostril, which will be a square. And again, depending on the person you're drawing, maybe it's more of a triangle. It's all about observation again. So sharpen your observation skills. Do even still lives, everything plays into sharpening your eye, as long as you practice. So again, what I will do is darken that one shape. And what I'll do at the end here too, when I have all of the features on the face, is go in with my darkest darks with my other pencils. I'm just trying to make sure I get through all of the meaty content first before I like finalize drawings. And this this would be the kind of under orbital area of the second eye over here. But I just want to show that for kind of a top of the nose. Another part that I think is really important when you're drawing portraits, and I'll go over this more next week, but there's another trapezoid here, which is the keystone of the face, which is another point of if it's more squished or if it's more elongated, will kind of tell you which angle the head is at, whether it's sideways squished or upwards. That will tell you a lot. Same with placement of the ear. Anyways, we'll get to that next week. Getting ahead of myself. So what I want to do here is blur that out. And another thing I want to actually at the same time, I want to show you guys front on what this would look like. So here we go. There's the side square. Here's another side square. Top of the nose. I don't know what shape that would be, kind of like a half of an octagon. Then you would have a rectangle coming up. And again, observe your model, take a look at them, see what their nose structure is like. Everyone's nose structure is different. Right now I'm doing a project where I'm illustrating a ton of different people, kinds of people, different backgrounds, races. Everyone's features are so unique and beautiful and different. But it just takes, even for me, it takes like 100% of my brain power to make sure I'm not putting in my own conceptions of what a nose looks like or what an eye looks like, to really observe that person. So it really takes time and valiant effort to make sure you're really taking in everything that the person you're looking at is and who they are. So what I'm doing here on the front facing one is adding a little bit more darkness to it, just so I can actually, here, this one is slightly too dark. So what I'm going to do, actually, this is a great time to talk about the kneaded eraser, which if you darken something just a bit too much, it's great to just lift. You really don't want to rub with the kneaded eraser. It's just not what it's for. That's for something like our Factis or, you know, the BM2 eraser. The kneaded one is just great for lifting. And why I like generals above others is just because it doesn't get oily. I have like a disaster pile of kneaded erasers. Look at how big this guy is. So it's been years of just getting together a bunch of kneaded erasers, and none of them have gone bad or infected the others, like I've had happen in the past to me back in art school. So Generals is the way to go with those ones, I feel. So I am picking back out some of this pigment here. And what I'm finding is if I'm doing a 3/4 angle, there's going to be a little triangle for the bottom side of the nose. And again, I'm doing everything I can to avoid, just like I did the highlight here, actually drawing the nostrils. So again, from a front facing view, it would kind of look like that, right? Just drawing a little upside down triangle there. And then what I want to do is add those little wings of the nostrils. So just 2 more angles like that. And this is, I hope these are all helpful tools, but this is nothing that, again, I can't go say enough observation, and just really studying the person you're looking at. These aren't, secrets anyone's withholding from you. That's why I love portraiture. It's like a mystery that's right in front of you, and you can figure it out if you study it. But there's no, as much as I'd love to be like, yes, I have the secrets and only I can tell you how to, no, like that's, I hope my tips and tricks help, but it's always, it's in front of you. That's what's fun about it. And we're around people all the time, so it's always in front of us. Okay, so I know I said I was gonna leave off the nostrils for a little while, but what I do want to do is go in with my BM2 eraser and reshape them a bit. So again, just however your model's nostrils are, they're not perfect circles. Usually the skin underneath kind of tucks into the nostrils a bit and maybe catches a little bit of light. It just totally depends. So just like we talked about with the sphere up here, there will be a core shadow, which is probably along this trapezoid line that we drew before. And again, you can finesse that. You can, take it in if you have to. All of this is so forgiving, and you can go back and forth as much as you need to. Until you feel like you get it right. But, we can shade it back in a little bit. We can blend it out. I'm actually going to use look at my hand, guys. I'm like, where'd I put that? Oh yeah, it's somewhere in my art fist. But again, if the light is coming from above the model, this bottom part of the nose is always going to be in shadow. So I'm also going to use my blending stump to just add a little bit of darkness to the nose. And why is this, you may ask? This is because the nose is one of the reddest parts of the face. And this is more of an artistic thing on my end. This is something I learned from one of my masters, is when you're working in black and white, the reddest areas, I kind of just tone differently. And that is so that we can go back in and just add a little highlight onto the nose. And I don't know, it just makes it seem rounder. It's hard to really give a clear answer. I hope that helps, but this is just something I like to do, and it's an artistic thing for me, but I hope that helps to kind of round out a nose. I think this looks better than this, just on my own personal tastes. And if I want to, add a little bit more light back into the wings of the nose, I can do that. Sometimes, again, this comes back to observing. So if you observe, what is the other side of the face doing? Is it darker on the other side of the nose? Do I need to interplay with shadow over here, or is it going to be lighter on that side? It's always comparing. And that's really what's going to set your portrait apart from, and it's so hard too, because I keep saying observe, 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 but there's also certain things that like I know I like it to look like this, but that just comes with time. Even if a nose may not actually look like that. I hope that's not too confusing, but let's move on to the lips within the last 15 minutes of our time together here. So the lips, you are going to be shocked at the shape I'm going to be drawing here, is a trapezoid. The face is just made up of so many trapezoids and simple shapes. but that's what makes it doable, I think, at least. So then we're gonna kind of have an upside down trapezoid as our bottom lip. And then there's this great area underneath the lips where kind of these like muscles and fatty areas around the bottom lip curve around this way and fill in. So what we're left with is this dark shadow underneath the chin and this dark shadow on the upper lip. And one reason why I know where all these things are is because if you are going to draw a face, I'm just making sure this is in a place where y'all can see it easily enough. So let's say this is a profile, right? So it's kind of over exaggerated, but I hope you get the point. Your darkest areas, again, assuming the light is up here, this is where all your shadows are going to be. So that's how I'm picking all these areas that, and I'll be talking about this next Friday in more depth, but these are all the areas that I am finding my shadow shapes in. So those are the areas that I am shading in to find greater shapes within them. And the lips are simultaneously the easiest and probably most difficult, which I know is probably what everyone wants to hear. But the lips are so soft, you guys. Everyone wants to draw hard lines around them, and really kind of like less is more. So, you know, I have the trapezoids there as kind of a good guideline for where to put the shadows on the lips. But now that I've kind of blurred it out, let's take a step into it with the BM2 eraser. So, oh gosh, sorry, I've got long hair and sometimes just strands are in my art materials. So I'm going to find this plane up here above the upper lip. And then highlight this bottom lip here. And usually, again, if the light is kind of coming at an angle, the entirety of the lip won't be highlighted. It'll just be part of it. So with everything, I'm going to kind of come at it with a 3/4 angle so you can see that difference. I feel like it shows more of the possibilities of the features. So we're going to give it that Cupid's peak, or people have different names for that. And then I'm going to kind of get rid of this line on the bottom side of the lip. Again, it's pretty subtle unless somebody's wearing very strong makeup. You know, all of this is so soft. And I once heard an artist say, like, make it look like the lips are just about to speak to you. And that's always, you know, kind of the goal. But the way you do that is just by making them so incredibly soft at the edges. So,
Julia, someone's asking how long it takes you to do a full portrait, which I know is probably a loaded question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if I'm going for a very close likeness to somebody, like this is somebody's relative, it may take like a day or two just to really get things right. And that's not saying like working all the way through those 48 hours, right? But it's very important to take a step back from your work and get a new perspective, ask your friends, look in a mirror, look at it upside down. So I would say like that takes a while. Painting is different. I would say for drawing about that, and that's being pretty generous, saying everything goes right. But I would say, you know, if it's just like this, maybe an hour, maybe two. I stream a lot. Well, I used to stream more, but I'll usually finish a stream in 1 or 2 hours. Again, depending on, am I trying to get somebody's likeness? Am I just drawing a face? Not to say just drawing a face, but, you know, just a face out of my head. It is a loaded question. Yeah, I don't know. It's just becoming proficient at it. If I'm doodling, no time at all. Yeah, sorry. That's a very tricky question to answer. Anyways, we have got 10 minutes left. We're gonna finish these lips. So I'm actually gonna go in with my hard pencil now because again, we want these lips very, very soft. So I'm just scumbling in these darker areas of the lips, and the bottom lip kind of has, I'm gonna do this very angularly, just kind of to draw out the structure of it. This is how I picture the structure, like drawn upside down Mickey Mouse, basically. And then if you follow those lines, those are quite plump lips. And then you shade the top, but everyone's lips to some degree have that shape to them or that anatomy. So that may help get an idea of where I'm going with this. So what I'm trying to find right now by scumbling with my hard HB pencil is to just very gently find that split along the lips. And again, you'll see this one, I went very, very hard, very, very dark, and I hope you all see the difference between what I did there and what I'm going for over here, which is that soft kind of right about to speak lips, which I'm not saying I'll get to that level today, but like I said, that's always my goal for myself. I heard somebody say that once and I'm like, oh, that's it forever. That's what I hope to do. And then my trick is always to kind of add 4 dark parts at the split of the lips. Hard to say, which is in these areas where the middle of the mouth kind of intersects a little bit more. And then the very, very corners where the mouth is more prone to split. So here, or it kind of like tucks, right? The skin tucks around in order to form these corners. So that's why it's dark, and you can even add a little bit of shading around them. Again, look at next time you have a conversation with someone, look at the corners of their mouth. I was just recently at the Oil Painters of America, and I was standing next to this woman. We're observing this model being painted, and she leaned over to me and she was like, aren't the corners of her mouth exquisite? I'm like, that's exactly what I was thinking. So you kind of get to be, I love being around my people that just love people watching in this very specific way. So yeah, just something even as seemingly mundane as that can be exciting. So I'm hopefully going to wrap this up in just a moment and then leave us about 5 minutes of Q&A if y'all have any questions for me. What I would also say is if you want to join in on next week's class, which is where I'm going to be putting all of these features together to create a more finalized portrait, is to practice, observe things, do studies, practice with your materials, get good at hatching, scumbling, blending, draw your spheres, draw these features, practice, practice, practice. I'm sure, again, everyone wants like a very quick, easy way to, you know, what's the trick to just boom, portrait? It's just practice. And again, observation, draw like your coffee mug in the morning, draw literally anything will help your observation, even if portraits seem you know, out of reach or scary at the moment. Anything will help, I promise you. So I used the hard pencil there because I knew for sure that I needed it to be a softer application. Now what I want to do is add a little bit of darkness to that also before we end today, just so you can see that like how different that is. Also, as you can tell, I'm blending in the white a bit to the black, just so that you can see how soft I can make that. And then we'll add some specular highlights to the lips, just for a little bit of interest. But yeah, okay, so let me see, where's soft pencil? The other thing I will also say, which pencil needs the most sharpening? Probably my medium, because I use that a lot today. Our little red pencil sharpener. I love this guy. It is our the ones that we use in the factory at General's. So it's made to get you back to the very first point you had with the pencil. It's a German stainless steel blade, so it's not going to get dull on you very quickly. I just keep it in this little Halloween ceramic thing, and I just keep this near my desk. But what you want to do is seat it well. Make sure it doesn't wiggle. Give it 3 good turns. And then pull straight out, and then bam, you have a perfect point. So you want to make sure you do that, because these are soft core pencils. If you spear them, it's very tricky. You're gonna be snapping a lot of cores, and it's gonna keep your pencil lasting you a lot longer. And this technique works great with nice and sharp tips, especially when you're hatching and stuff. So this is our medium. So let's go back to our soft, because I just picked that up to do this. I'm just gonna hit the darkest points here, just for emphasis. Okay, maybe a little bit in the nostrils as well. All right, I hope that helps everyone. Any questions that I can answer in these last 5 minutes? That hopefully, if I already went over it, I'll let you know, and you can watch it back. I just want to make sure I'm spending the time doing Q&A. Is there a link for the sharpener? It should be in the
I'll send the link for the sharpener. Okay. Julia, can you speak to, there was a couple questions about the brush you were using for blending, and then yeah, there's 2 people asking about the brush.
Okay, so what I mentioned about the brush earlier is it can literally be whatever brush, as long as it's dry, as long as it's soft, just feel the bristles. Doesn't have to be any particular type. I like clearance bin brushes for this, just because I feel fine about getting them dirty in this. Camel hair, if you're looking for a very specific kind, if you need more of a, this one, I don't know if it's camel hair or not. Again, nameless, what you call it, clearance bin brush. So, but camel hair is very soft, generally speaking, so that'll do the job. I have so many painting brushes, so I'll just be like, what's my driest, cleanest, ready to use for charcoal brush? And that's kind of how I determine it. So as far as asking me what kind, that's the best answer I can give. What do you use for the white? Like I said, that is it's in the kit too that's listed, but it's the charcoal white 558 General's charcoal white pencil. And this is again, I like this a lot because not only is it the same consistency as the charcoal you're using, obviously made by the same folks, but it's also not waxy. I've used a lot of like white pastels and everything. It just doesn't work the same. This is going to lay down your whites so softly and so cleanly. Every time I've been using these materials for probably a decade now, at least. I got a lot of hand-me-downs from my parents. They were both artists, so General Pencil has been a part of my life for a very, very long time. Just nothing really lays down like these. What is that blue pencil you were using? I'm not using a blue pencil. This is just 2 taped together Tortillions. Because I didn't want to lose them. So one's for the dark side, one's for the light side. For all you Jedi masters out there, pick your side and use it to blend. Anyways. The kit or the pack should be on the homepage of the class where you signed up for. All the materials are listed there. Awesome. Yeah, I hope to see you all next Friday. I hope this technique is helpful. Yeah, just keep practicing, y'all. I hope to see y'all then, and we'll put this all together. I swear it'll make sense. Not like Picasso'd like it is right now. We'll get it all together. What is the name of the eraser? It is the BM2 eraser, pen style Factis eraser. Oop, there we go. Help if it's on screen. And they do come with, or not come with, but they do sell refills of it in packs of 3, and I can't tell you how like long these last. Again, it depends on what surface you're using it on. If you're constantly using it on like a sanded surface, you're gonna go through anything 10 times faster. But I swear my first one probably lasted me 2 years before I'm like, oh yeah, I need a refill, don't I? I just thought it would be endless. So no, give it a try. I really love these. I can't express enough how much this is probably the biggest like secret to this technique out there. I really love it.
Julie, a couple people asked earlier as well about how you finish your portraits, about, fixative or how you seal it.
Yeah, sure. So what I usually use, I'll just speak to charcoal here because that's what we're doing. And what I'll say is if you're using fixative for other things, like pastels or whatever, always test it first. Grab another sheet of paper, scribble on it, spray it, because I can't tell you, like I've used chalk a number of times for like special techniques, and it's just poof, gone. All that work I did, gone. Because of the material I was using and the board. So don't be like Julia. Do what I say, not as I do. With charcoal and paper, it's pretty safe, pretty simple. Use workable fixative. I think I use Kamar or Krylon. I've used both. I think both will work as long as it's like a workable fixative and not a varnish, which is what you'd use on paintings. So yeah, workable spray fixative, give it a spray, do it outside because it's stinky. Yeah, if you're doing other more experimental things, always test it first, guys. Don't lose your entire drawing and all your work and break your own heart over it. Yeah. And I think my work should be again, I think you can follow the main class page off to my website or anything, but if you want to find me anywhere, see more of my work, I'm basically first initial last name on every social media imaginable. So you can see all of that another time. Oh, thank you, Kirsten. I love you. Thank you. Making my life easy. Yeah, there's my website and my social medias. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, if anyone's still there. I think I still have a Facebook page that I don't really update. I would say Instagram's the best bet for my social media. Go figure, it's a visual website. So that's the best way to see kind of everything I'm doing. But if you want to see a more curated version, go to my website. Any other last minute questions? Gonna give it another 1 minute. Okay, I'm glad y'all had a good time. Yeah,
I'm
I
going
can
to
only,
link next week's class one more time. Somebody asked about it. I'm going to link it one more time.
no, absolutely. It's a free class, y'all. So just like this one, you can sign up and just come on in. I'll be here, and both of them will be rewatchable as well. But if you want to come in live and ask me questions as I go, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank y'all so much for the feedback, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much.